Good morning, Coldwell Banker George Realty. Welcome to our Friday training. Today, we're going to go over some of the highlights and differences in the vacant land purchase agreement CAR form. Okay, so we're going to get started. I will begin sharing my screen. So first up, I just put this as a reminder. In our website, we do have all of the list for the forms that you'll need. And so I wanted to make sure that you saw this because this is really important. I print these out for every transaction and I kind of use it as a checklist, but you can pull this right off of our website. So make sure you're making use of the tools that we have for you on the website. Okay, so I'm just showing you this so it makes your transaction a lot easier because you just use this as your checklist, okay? So I pulled up the whole package of what populates with the vacant land purchase agreement. So as always, there's going to be a disclosure regarding real estate agency relationship at the front end. Here, you can take this, I don't need it. And then here is the vacant land purchase agreement and joint escrow instructions. So I'm not going to go over paragraph by paragraph. What I am going to do is I'm going to highlight some of the differences. I'll show you the grid, and a lot of this is going to be extremely familiar to you from other grids. So let me go down the grid and show you what the differences are. So you see it's all going to kind of look the same to you from the other grids of even an RPA purchase price, close of escrow, etc. Down here on E3, you see the intended use. So there's a little bit of a difference because it defaults to investment. Or if it's something else, you check the box and insert that there, okay? So there's one of your first differences. That is on page 1 of 17, okay? So you're going to note back here, it's the same. You're going to check the box here for this seller's payment for broker's obligation to compensate buyer's broker. Put in your percent here. And you notice here that they're even on vacant land. So be aware because this is a purchase. You do need your BRBC. And the buyer is affirming that they had a valid one at the time of this offer. So BRBC is required on purchases, so make sure that you are gathering that document prior to making an offer. Or if you drove by the vacant land, you could technically date that BRBC the same day, right? Because maybe you just did a drive-by and they decided they wanted to make the offer. So the grid is going to look much the same as it always does. The verification of all cash and loans and that kind of thing. Now, if you are getting a loan, you do need to supply the pre-qual with the offer because it makes you stronger in your offering. Now, here's a couple of differences, L3 and 4. Is this purchase of a manufactured home? If it is, check the box here, okay? There's 17 days default to make sure that they can put that they have the manufactured home. And right here, you see the buyer, it's going to default. The buyer has entered into a contract. If they have not entered into a contract to purchase that manufactured home, make sure you check the box here. You also have, that you can make this contingency in effect till close of escrow. When they are placing manufactured homes, I saw one deal a couple of years ago go sideways because it wasn't allowed and they kept getting misinformation. So if they're going to be placing something like that on the property, they really need to go and check with the city, make sure that, it's going to be allowable, that there's enough land there, requirements, all of that kind of thing. Okay. And manufactured homes, sometimes on vacant lots, you have to have a, what's it called? The structure, this concrete, you have to have a firm foundation. So all of those things, they're not going to need to check the requirements with the city because it's not just as simple as putting a home, a manufactured home on there.
So you have to be with the loan company, you have to coordinate with the loan company along with the city, right? On certain rules and things that you can do.
Yeah, right. But also, yeah, let them go to the counter if you want to escort them there, but let them be asking the questions because we did have a deal go sideways because it wasn't on a permanent foundation. It wasn't going to be. And so you need to make sure that if they're doing this, that they've researched amply on that particular lot. Here they have construction loan financing. This is particular to vacant land. A draw from the construction loan will not, it defaults to there will not be used to finance the property. If you are using construction loan proceeds, you need to check the box will, okay? So those are some different things. Investigation of property, all of that defaults to 17 days. Now on these, if you're investigating zoning, things like that, you may need longer. You may need a longer period here because they may want to be really careful about what they can and can't do with that vacant land. So I would think that you may want to extend the days here, greater than 17 days. And of course, insurance. Review of the preliminary title report. So I always give you my experiences and things that made me go, oh no. So I was closing a lot that was going into foreclosure. And at the last date, the buyer's going, wait, do I have water rights? We had everything in, all of the disclosures. And I'm like, let me check. Well, where do we check for water rights? Where would you find that? That is on the prelim, mineral and water rights. But, way back then, I didn't have the same level of experience. So what you want to do is you want to give them the benefit of your experience. Hey, look at the prelim for mineral rights. Look at it for water rights. These could be very important topics. In the case of that buyer, he didn't care. He's like, I don't really care, but do you know? Yeah, we'll look at the prelim again. So, the prelim was already signed off, so no problem. But make sure that you're pointing this out. Because some mineral rights are pulled from a property. For instance, my parents sold a property in Wilmington and pulled the mineral rights out from it. Those mineral rights did not transfer with that property. Why? Because they're being paid annually from Shell or somebody that it's been in effect for 50, 60 years. So if you are selling, even on multifamily or homes, I think it's a really good idea to ask, are you getting mineral rights? Do you have any payouts on it? My parents had a lawyer, and unfortunately, he didn't even pick that up. So I stopped the wholesale and I went with a title company lawyer, okay, to get this done. So make sure that you're understanding that. We're not lawyers. We do need the backup of lawyers, but not every lawyer will be an expert in that. So the title company can advise you how to check that. And if you need to retain mineral rights, they can show you how to exclude it from the sale. Okay. So those are two.
Some of the mineral rights are transferable and it can be sold separate.
Mhm.
So, if you're not careful, you think that you may have a mineral right, but then after you got the property, the mineral right has been sold already, so you don't,
That's
Yeah.
right.
yeah.
Oh,
Be
yeah.
Very careful.
Yeah, and it's so slick and tricky that if you're not really focused, and the only reason I was hyper focused because it's my parents, they're being paid annually. I'm going to make sure they're going to keep being paid, So these are just like when you go through transactions, these are things you gain through experience. So those are things you're going to want to ask about, okay? Look at your prelim. Talk to your title officer. If you have really heavy questions, they will ask their attorney and get back to you. So just keep asking, okay? Because you're helping your client and you will get more business from doing that. Okay? So that's one of the differences here. So they have a box here for environmental survey phase 1. So who's going to pay for it? Are you going to ask for it? Peter, do you recommend on vacant land?
Yeah.
Yes. So Peter recommends the phase 1 on the vacant land as well, environmental survey. Okay. So there is another thing that I was just reading. Verification of property. We don't think of a VP form for vacant lots, but we probably should. It's even in the contract. And the reason why is you want the buyer to go, look at the property prior to closing, maybe 5-10 days, whatever. Why? Because I was just reading a story about a closing where an encampment of people had moved in, unbeknownst to the seller, and not noticed by the buyer because they weren't there in the beginning. So let's all require a VP, and we will put that on our list. Let's do a VP on land as well, because I think it's really important that they go back and look. Make sure something hasn't changed. Make sure nobody's pulled up a camper, whatever, but go back and look at the property, the buyer, okay? So I'm gonna get down.
Another thing you have to look for in a vacant land is the endangered species.
Yes.
And that is a big one, because if you find the vacant land for development purposes, if they have endangered species, you have to first relocate the endangered species to another place before you can develop, and that can be problematic, and it's not easy. And those endangered species protection, is really ridiculous. Sometimes you don't think that it's worth to preserve, but the government wants to really enforce it, then you're in big trouble.
Yeah, so I hope you could all hear that. That's a really important point. Now, Peter, can they ask at the counter if there's any endangered species on the property at the city counter?
Yes.
So have your client ask the city counter folks, if there's any endangered species on that property. It could be a frog, I don't know, or some weird bug, but make sure that could stop them from building, right?
Yeah.
Until it was remedied. So you want to always be on your game. Vacant land, there are certain things that you should be doing. So that's why we're having this class. We want to make sure that you're clued in how to be the director to your buyer and your seller. Okay. So additional disclosures. This is something for vacant land. So you see here, they're telling everybody within the time specified, if the seller has actual knowledge, they'll provide the buyer in writing these particular types of information and any other material fact, actually. So is there any legal proceedings? What's the architectural use, if they know? Is there any restrictions for architectural use? Deed restrictions, farm use, whether the property is in or adjacent to an area with the right to farm. Endangered species, yep, they've mentioned it here. Environmental hazards. Are there any common fences or walls with an adjoining property? Is the property landlocked? Easements or encroachments, sometimes there's a road running through that allows another property owner to get to their property. So you want to check all this. What type of soil? Are there any soil problems, earthquake, zoning issues, neighborhood problems, etc.? Survey plans, permits, and engineering. So these are specific to the land. So make sure that you're reviewing this list with your buyer and your seller. Hey, do you have any of this? If they don't, fine, but have the buyer be following up on this. It's very important, because if they're going to build, if it's like that sinking soil, maybe it's not a good spot for them. So they want to make sure that they know what they're buying. And just by taking this list, and of course the seller has to disclose any other material known facts, this list is a great help. So make sure you're looking at that. It is on page, that's G 11G, page 7. Very good list to go over with your buyer and your seller, okay? So the seller will provide as one, we have additional disclosures required, but it references here the seller vacant land questionnaire. That is for the seller only to fill out. We don't put our pin on it and fill it out for them. So we want to make sure that the vacant land questionnaire, and I do have it pulled up, is filled out strictly by the seller. Okay, so those are the differences that I wanted to point out in the contract. I am going to jump down.
Another thing that we should look out for is, you know, in the high or very high fire danger zone.
Yes.
Then you have to make sure that, hey, what is the maintenance for that piece of land? Because the government will require you to do that weed abatement every year. And
Yeah.
it can be very expensive, you know. I have a piece of property in Chino that every year I have to spend like $3,000 just for cleaning the weed, you know.
Yeah.
And it has been waiting for many years already. So that's an extra expenses that you have to put in, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. So weed abatement and things like that, if the seller is been doing that type of maintenance, they should disclose that to the buyer. But as a buyer's agent, do ask that question. Here's some other good information: sizes, lines, access, and boundaries. So you want to make sure that you know that their property lines, physical access. They can do a survey to check the lot lines if they wish. But point this paragraph out to your buyer. Zoning and land use. What are the past and present or proposed laws, ordinances? Sometimes if the zoning was for something at one point, doesn't mean at this point it still is. Maybe they've rezoned it without the knowledge of the seller. So you want to make sure, this is another city counter question, make sure that they're asking this. I think these two sections, the one prior that I showed you in this, will help you to direct your buyer. Utilities and services. Are they in the street? Where are they? Are there any? So you want to be checking for that. Of course, environmental hazards, geological conditions, natural hazard zone, like is it in a flood area, things like that. You're going to order your NHD with environmental. Always check the box for environmental. If the seller doesn't want to give you the extra $20 for environmental, please get it anyway for your buyer. It is extremely important, especially on a land. So if you take and go over these with your buyer and seller, you're going to cover a lot. So make sure that you're doing that. Okay. So that second checklist is on page 9. Okay. So I'm going to skip down. This is all pretty much what we've seen in other contracts. I'm going to go to the questionnaire. It populates with all of these disclosures, you know, fair housing, representation of more than one buyer or seller, wire fraud, California Consumer Privacy Act, CCPA. Now, here's the seller vacant land questionnaire. This I would drop off and let them take their time. Don't push them to do it in 5 minutes. There's a lot of questions here. Drop the form off or email it to them so the seller can be reading it and checking the appropriate boxes. So this is going to go over all the information to help jog their memory or bring up things that maybe they didn't think they should disclose. This is a good form. So make sure that they're reading this and checking the boxes. If you check yes in any of these, please provide an explanation down here. So if it was A, you would put 6A and a little explanation. Okay, so this is for the seller. We do not fill this out. Okay.
Can you be with him when he fill it out, or is this something that you have to stay away, like you're?
Oh, no, you can be with them. Maybe they want to ask you questions, but if they're asking you, hey, should I disclose this? Like Brian Smith said, you should probably disclose it. If they're asking the question,
If they should?
yeah, then they should probably disclose it. You know, maybe they had a lawsuit with a trip and fall, you know, 5 years ago, which happened to my friend, you know, where they climbed the fence and, you know, trip and fall on her property. So, you know, all of those kind of things that, you know, they should be disclosing. So I want to open it up because Peter is here. Does anybody on Zoom have any questions?
You can be with the seller, you know, sometimes they say, okay, I don't understand, you know, the English, you know, so you can change into their language, you know. But don't sign or don't trust anything.
Yeah, so
Be careful.
So Kenny was saying maybe you want to read each question to your seller in a different language if they need that, but do read it verbatim. Yeah. And each question, don't skip if you're doing that.
What if the seller doesn't know? What if there's a question he's not aware of?
Then it's a no. It's are you aware of?
If he doesn't know,
If he doesn't know, he doesn't know.
okay.
But they shouldn't, if they do know, they should disclose it. Another thing that I was reading, because I'm constantly reading, I was watching reading about a case, and I thought it was important enough to bring up. It was a mother and a son selling a property together, okay? And they were both on the property and e-signing, They used one email for mother and son. Now, when they were going along in escrow, the mother popped out and said, I'm not selling. I didn't sign any of this. So I just wanted to bring that up because I was just reading about it. So, maybe if it's, we have some clients that husband and wife, we do use one email. However, in this case, it kind of bit the agent because the mother said, I didn't see those. I didn't sign them. So, be careful, about the same email. Do you have anything to add to that?
Well, I mean, that's best way is not to use the same email.
Yeah. Yeah.
But if you do, you have to safeguard that, by making it clear to the other party saying that, they approve or that they disapprove. Make sure that you get their permission,
Right. And the best way to
Yeah.
cover yourself too is to provide that extra step of an email, right?
Yeah,
And then if both parties didn't say concur or yes, I've seen it, pick up the phone and make a call. Mrs. Smith, did you see the email with the disclosures in them or the contract that went to your email? I wanted to make sure that you received it. Do you have any questions?
yeah.
So take those extra steps, but I just was reading about a case with the shared email and and the escrow went sideways. So I thought it was important to bring that up. So just be re-emailing all the documents that you've sent through e-signature. Always re-email them and say these have been sent to you through e-signature. Please review them prior to signing. Let me know if you have any questions. Please confirm your receipt. Simple. Just email it with the attachment so that you have that extra set for yourself, that extra protection.
Wouldn't it be better to have extra safe to try to Zoom with both parties or speak with them in a
Yeah.
phone conference? Are you aware? Are you aware? No. And that's even you can have somebody that can falsify that person too. That's
Yeah. Yeah.
You never know.
So the e-signature is because we have the trail. I think it's permissible in court, right?
Mhm.
So the trail is permissible, but it's when they shared that email. So that's where I was reading that escrow went sideways. It wasn't our company, it was another company, but I was just reading the briefing on it. So are there any questions? Okay, so VP on all vacant land, please. We're going to add that to our checklist. And if you have any questions afterwards or think of something or you're entering into a contract on vacant land, please contact management. We're here to help you. And if there's no questions, any comments? Okay, that was a quick one.
Thank you, Michelle.
Yeah. Thank you all for attending, and we'll be doing some different types of training. We're going to add some trainers that will go over some prospecting ideas for you. We'll be getting that ready. So you'll see a couple of different faces, but we will be here with them. But we're going to add some prospecting and things like that, and where you can pick up phone numbers. We're also going to schedule for commercial with CB Corporate. Peter and I went to a meeting yesterday, and he has a contact that can train on making OMs, operating memorandums on commercial through build out. So we'll have that scheduled. It is a fabulous program. Did she say if you had to buy it yourself, it's worth 18,000? That program?
It's very expensive.
It's very expensive.
But it's included in the commercial pension.
Yeah, so we're so lucky because that build out is included in your commercial franchise fee. So we'll schedule that meeting as well. Those are some upcoming things that'll be very helpful for all of us. So thank you for attending and bear with us through the move. We're almost there and the office is looking beautiful. We look forward to seeing you all here. Thank you so much. Have a good weekend.
Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle.
Mhm.
Happy Friday.
Happy Friday.
Every day.